Hello everyone, my name is Barbara. I'm a Polish girl who lives in Ireland and likes to knit, and today I have a finished object for you, which is this beautiful sweater. First things first, this is not a tutorial, it is a paid for pattern. I was so honored to be picked to test knit it. It was quite a challenge for me, but I managed and I was so happy about it. Okay, first you're here to listen something about a pattern, so I'm going to tell you now at the end my little bit experience of how it is to be a test knitter, because that was literally my first time. First things first, I'm going to tell you what kind of gauge you need to get to knit this sweater. I actually need to get 3 gauges, one for stockinette stitch, one for ribbing, and one in the pattern. So basically for this section. But do not worry. I know the test knitters were asked to do it, but the difference is not as big. So basically the pattern I think calls for 16 stitches in the stockinette stitch. It is important from perspective of the width of it. If you have it smaller gauge or too big one, you will not hit the size that you think you're going to end up with at the end. So that's why the gauge is so important. Did I get the gauge? Well, I got the gauge in regards stitches, but not in regards rounds. I think the pattern calls for 26, 27. I know you've seen it on the screen. I got, I think, 24. And I had to play, and not sure what pattern recommends in regards to the needles. So maybe on the screen now over here. I knitted it on US size 4, which is 3.5 millimeters. So all the ribbing. Then I went to the stockinette stitch and I did that on US size 6, which is 4 millimeters. And I went just half of the size, so I went US size 7 and 4.5 millimeters. I'm referring to millimeters over here, but yeah, I went size up in US and half millimeter in millimeter sections for the yoke. That's what I did. Will it work for you? Definitely, I would say play with the gauge. But once you start, that's also a good thing, because this pattern is written from the top down. So while I was knitting it, double check that my gauge was the same as in my swatches. Do you want to see my swatches? I didn't swatch it. Obviously just the one over here. So now, my first stockinette stitch swatch was my sweater that I knitted before. So I could literally do the swatch because I wanted to use the same yarn, because that's how much I have quite close in regards sweater quantity. What I need to do then, just to do a swatch in the round. So here it is. This is the swatch in the round. So as you can see, there's some stuff here, which means that when I was doing it, I had to move the yarn and knit, and then I stretched it. Now, I'm not a fan to do the swatching in the round, because when you do a swatch, you work on the smaller circumference, and sometimes you have the tendency to do that. So you need to make sure that when you're knitting it, you're not creating any tubes, you're just knitting it kind of flat, so those bits are sticking out like a lot. Because I don't know about you, but in regards to my journey with knitting, I noticed with few of my sweaters, especially in the beginning, that when I was knitting my sleeves, I had a tendency to have a smaller gauge. And then I heard that when the circumference, like in the body, so it's bigger, we have a tendency to knit looser, and then as a smaller we have a tendency to knit tighter, even though we use the same size of needles. Here it is, done, dusted. I did a ribbing over here and I went with the pattern, so that way I knew I used smaller needles, and then I used the biggest needles because the medium ones I used for stockinette. So just in case you'll be doing a gauge or swatch for a gauge, this is how I did it. maybe a closer look. If you have a pattern and you would want to see what I use to make a gauge, you could kind of come up with. I did one stitches on the side, then I did some seed stitch, and then I did the middle. Now let's talk about yarn. Why didn't I get the rounds right, but I was able to get stockinette stitch gauge right? Because the yarn that I use is a hand spun, at least that's how I understand. In my project page I call it Knitting I Love 100% wool, because I got it in Poland from farmers who spin, I presume. I haven't noticed there's any kind of woolen meal in Poland, so I don't think they're sending it. I presume that they have their own they all wheels, and basically it's not so popular to sell it because people, when they touch it for the first time, it's kind of rough, and you could see in the markets it's only one town that they sell it. The sweaters or any accessories they do, it's done on 4 or 5 millimeters, so it's very open garment. That's first thing, and it looks that it hasn't been washed, hasn't been worn, so it's quite rustic. You see this sweater, right? This is a Key sweater. I put the link to my playlist garments, so you can kind of check underneath any finished object video. I have a link to the pattern and to my project page, so you can check it that way. So now, everyone is talking about 100% wool and rustic and feeling about it, and how do we feel? And there was a theory that I thought, and I haven't tested myself, and that's why I'm doing, that once you start wearing the sweater, because your heat, it kind of felts from the inside, so it gets smoother. More often you wash it, it kind of, it's like I think it's like leather that leather is first kind of solid and rough. While you're using it, it gets softer. So I presume it happens with this. So if I wear it for a while, not too long. Maybe I have it for like a month, and I use it for walks. That'll be my another sweater for walks. If I can run my hand over here, and I can run my hand over here, I feel this is softer. This is not as much. Like I said, I just had it for like a month-ish. So here it is, how the yarn looks, and here in the cake. It is a 2-ply, and I would say it's worth it. So what I did to check the yardage, because you may notice, these are my notes that I weighted it because they come in the skeins, but I bought the skein as kind of different weights. So I could have 170, and I'm going to bring you the ones that I used to show you. So here are my ones. I call it as a DK. You could see it, but it's definitely not a DK. It's worsted, I think. So I call it light gray, and we have 170, we have 160, and we have 175. But I use 480 grams over here, so 500 something for me. I like the length of it. It's like perfect. So you will have, on my project page, you will have measurements of this sweater, and underneath it you will have my own measurements. So you will see my, so you can hopefully compare how I look in it and how it works. This is designed to have a 0 negative ease and 0 positive ease. I added just 6 stitches over here, but I literally did everything the same in the pattern here and the creases over here. And even though I didn't get the same rounds in a gauge, as you could see, it's perfect. Perfection. So happy about it. It flies off my needles. Anything in regards to yarns? Okay, yes. So I was told that if you have a hand spun, you do a loop, you measure that loop, or the yarn that you have in the loop, then you count how many loops you have, you weight your yarn, and you check how many loops you have per 100 grams. So that's what I did, and it was 120 meters, 2-ply. But the pattern calls for, on the screen, for an iron weight, 155 meters, which is 170 yards. So I was 30 meters off the spot. So I wasn't sure would I be included, but as you can see, even if you don't have spot on yarn, you can definitely go for it. Just bear in mind, I have knitted a few sweaters already. Check my playlist so you could see how many until this point, and you could hear how many tips and lessons I went through until I'm hitting this spot. That's quite interesting too. What sizes do we have? We have quite a few sizes. We have size from 1 till 6, and I knitted size 3. So on the screen I'm going to give you the bust measurements. So you will see number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, 5, and 6. Pattern includes 3 tutorials if you're not sure how to do cast on. The way we do a cable stitch over here. Yes, this is a cable. First time I saw it and I wasn't sure. I thought maybe just some kind of lace thing. So in the pattern you will have link to that, and even though the pattern tells you you can use a cable needle for a certain part, I actually didn't have to. Maybe because of the rustic of the yarn, nothing was happening. I could literally do the same thing on the other side. So amazing. During the test knits we didn't have a link to tubular bind off, so I looked it up, but so apparently pattern includes it now. I put on this channel my tutorial how I didn't modify it, but I speed things up, because when I was doing the body over here, you have to have the length of the 4 times of your circumference over here to have that piece of yarn, cut it off, put it on tapestry needle, and then you do things with it. And every time you have to pull that yarn, so I just come up with a system that instead of 5 times pulling the yarn, I'm just pulling 3 times. The whole pattern, the whole sequence goes with 7, so I cut it off just 3 to memorize everything. I just play with tapestry needle before I pull. Check it out if you do that. I'm going to put those 2 videos over here at the end, so I hope it's going to be helpful for you. Now, one more thing that I really liked about this pattern. Another good thing about this pattern, even though this looks amazing, it is not as difficult as you may think it is. Second of all, what I loved about it, the way it is designed, you have written and the charted instructions. I went with the charted. You do certain things certain times, but it is so easy to count it. So once you do one thing once, you'll know how to do the rest, and it will be very easy for you without even looking at the chart to see where you're at. Obviously during this chart we have some increasing, so just pay attention when they are. So after a certain number, just remember you have to do it, and then after a certain number you have to do it, and then probably about certain, I don't remember how many times you have to do it, yeah, if I could and I had time, I had yarn, I would knit it again. It was so nice and so actually fast. We started, I can tell you when I started knitting on it. We got an email on the 4th of January asking who would want to test knit. On the 6th of January we got a list informing us who is qualified to do it. We received a Google form and we were able to fill it in. I also wrote down about the pattern, the yarn I'm going to use, and it went through. So I was picked and I was sharing the size with Gillian. So I say hi to Gillian. She was also knitting the side, so I'm not sure her Everly name, or yeah, but she has a burgundy one, so check it out, that Gillian. On the 6th, I know I think I lost 2 days, so I haven't started doing my swatches, but I did, well, swatch, I did 1 swatch, and then I started knitting. We use a Slack app to stay in touch with each other, and hopefully this app is going to tell me when I started, because I posted photo straight away when I had color. On the 12th of January, my swatch for the gauge with the pattern was finished, and I posted it. That is done. That was approved and I got the pattern. I started on the 18th of January and I think I finished it on the 3rd of February before soaking and blocking it, so I don't count that. Not bad, isn't it? Not bad. So nice. I really recommend it. Do I have anything else to say? I haven't seen yet because I'm recording before publishing, so when it's going to publish, I'm going to publish this video, and today is 9th of February and we had a deadline to do it by the 7th. Well, I managed, it's just it was raining for 3 days, I couldn't take photos. So over here I'm going to show you some photos because I kept photos while I was knitting on it. I couldn't post on Instagram or I couldn't share anything on my podcast. So because the test knit was a secret test knit, sometimes if you do test knits, they're open, you can share your projects, but this one was this way, and I just honored the designer, and so happy that I was able to do it. My goal was to do a test knit for anyone and whoever I see first, and I was in a big shock that this sweater showed up because I wasn't sure would I be able to do it, but I'm so happy that I did. I actually found even a tiny little thing during the test knit. We could actually classify it more as a typo than anything else, and I'm so happy with it. What I'm going to do, I'm going to leave links all down below to even Becky's podcast. She has a podcast, and it's linked to her Ravelry designs, not only to this pattern. So once you hit designs, you can browse through her designs just to support her that way too. I was so happy to test knit it, and what I can say, it's amazing adventure to do a test knit. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this one. See you next one. If you have any questions in regards my sweater, please leave comments down below. If you have any questions in regards to the pattern per se, please contact designer. I hope you enjoyed this one. See you next one. Don't forget to use hashtag knitting I love. Show me what you're knitting. Tag me so I can see it on Instagram. I'm active on it all the time. I probably shouldn't. And these two things that you see over here, just check my patterns. Let me know what kind of projects you have on your needles. Let me know, have you ever knitted a sweater before? And if you did you knit a sweater with this kind of worsted / Aran weight? Remember, the pattern calls for Aran 170 yards, which is 155 meters. Check your stash. Bye. Oh yeah, and it has waist shaping.